All right, greetings, friends. As part of our 100-year celebration here at Myers Park United Methodist Church, it's really exciting. I'm talking to a couple of our former pastors, and it's my great pleasure today to have my longtime friend and our former pastor, Lawrence McCleskey, with us today. Lawrence, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, James. Great to be here.
You served here what years?
1991 to 1996.
91 to 96. Well, I'd plan to ask you this later. I'll just ask you now. So where were you right before that?
I came here from Gastonia. I was at
first Gastonia. What did you think which bishop called you?
It was Bev Jones who
Love Bev.
appointed me here.
What did you think when he said, I want you to go to Myers Park?
I had been in Gastonia. I was in my third year.
Not long.
Not long. We were very happy there. It's a wonderful church. I really hadn't anticipated leaving there. And so first I had to get my mind around, this is a little early in the normal process of things, so I'd have to think about that. But I must admit, Myers Park was very appealing. I had really not thought about that, but when it came along, I thought, okay, that would be a good thing to do, I suppose. Predecessor at Gastonia had made the same move. Wilson Weldon had made the same move some years before, so it would. I knew that just from having known Wilson. So it was a little bit of a surprise, and I had to get used to the idea. And Bev and I talked more than once. The way it came about is interesting. Margaret and I had been on a trip to England for a couple of weeks, and we got back. It was February, and I was sitting in my study at the house, the parsonage, going through a couple of weeks' worth of mail, and Bev called, and he said, "This is Bev Jones." Said, "What are you doing for lunch today?" I said, "It sounds like I'm eating with you."
Yes.
And we went from there.
Where'd y'all eat? Do you remember?
I do not.
He used to always take me to Valentino's, which is no more here in Charlotte. He was funny. He was a talker.
Yeah, we may have gone to the Myers Park Country Club. I don't remember for sure. I ate lunch with him there a couple of times, so that may have been
He was a big golfer.
And I'd been a DS when he came to Western North Carolina, so we knew each other from that connection. And he had appointed me in Gastonia. So he sent me there, and then 3 years later.
And you were following Bernard.
I was following Bernard, yeah,
Fitzgerald.
and I didn't know Bernard was retiring, and that's what Bev told me. I said, well, I didn't know Myers Park even if it was going to be open. He said, well, Bernard's going to retire. I said, oh, well, that's not on the streets yet, so that's how that happened.
He was some act to follow. He knew Bernard a long time before he even came here, and just spellbinding preacher, funny.
Yeah.
I'd been here, about a month, and he was holding court in the narthex while I was greeting people. And he kind of drew the crowd kind of close to me, and he said, James is amazing. He's one of the two best we've ever had. He was just always funny.
He was funny. Well, Bernard told me when I came, he said, now, Lawrence, Carol and I are going to stay in the church. But he said, we're not going to be around much for a while. We're going to let you sort of get settled in. And said, then when I come, we'll sit in the balcony. And he said, but this is the deal. He said, if I hear people say great things about you, I'll just tell them, oh, you're so right, I agree. If I hear anybody criticize you, I'll call you and talk to you myself. I said, that's fair enough, Bernard. But I tried to get Bernard, kept trying to get him to come back and preach. And I'd been here about 3 years before I could ever talk him into coming. And finally, he would say, no, they've heard everything I've got to say. And I said, well, Bernard, they've forgotten it all by now. Finally got him to come back and preach. But Bernard was a great supporter.
Lovely guy. He's so funny.
Yeah.
Just miss him terribly. But let's back up before all that. So where are you from originally?
I was born in Atlanta, and when I was 11 years old, we moved to Tampa, Florida. My father's job took us there. And I grew up in Tampa, finished high school there.
Went to the Hyde Park United
Went
Methodist
to Hyde
Church.
Park United Methodist Church in Tampa, yeah. My dad had gone down to start working a month or so before we all moved. And when we got there, he said, well, I got to drive by this church on the way to work every day. He said, why don't we give it a try? So we said, okay, well, we agreed we'd do that and visit around, as we'd say. Well, we never went anywhere else. We went there one Sunday, and that was it. My parents were members of that church for over 50 years. It's had a huge influence on me.
It's a great church.
It's a great church. We had a pastor who had come just a few months before we moved to Tampa, and he stayed 11 years. And his influence shaped my life in many ways, one of which was the decision to come to school at Duke. That particular pastor, Laurie Ray was his name. He had two daughters older than I, one my age, all of whom came to Duke. But he had been a college classmate of Hollis Edens, who at the time was president at Duke. And so he began to talk to me about Duke. I didn't know anything about Duke, but the more I read about it, I'd never seen the place till the day I drove on the campus as a freshman. Long answer to the question. Margaret has long said, if people ask me what time it is, I'll try to tell them how to make a watch. But anyhow, that's a long way from Atlanta, where did I grow up, but Atlanta and Tampa and then to Durham.
And of course, we share a great devotion to Duke University, as we should. And anyway, but then you heard a call to ministry, and when were you ordained?
It was so different back in those days, the ordination process. If you could walk and chew gum at the same time, you could just about pass the tests. So I was ordained, we had the two-step ordination then. I was ordained a deacon in 1963 after 1 year of theological school. In those days, you could do that.
Wow.
And I was received into the conference, as they used to say, on trial. Now you're a probationary member, but I was on trial, for a period of time. And then I was ordained an elder. I served as student pastor, so I took 4 years instead of normal 3 to go through divinity school. So I finished in 1966 and was ordained an elder the same year.
Who ordained you? Who?
Earl Hunt.
Oh man, that was I remember meeting Earl Hunt, and it was as if I were meeting, I don't know, just say Titan. Those guys back then, those were giants. I just held such respect and awe for them. He was a great man.
Great man, he really was.
Yeah. I try to remember when you and I met. We were younger men. I don't know if you were at that church up in Greensboro or if you were already at DS, somewhere in that time.
Probably, maybe while I was in North Wilkesboro. I was in Greensboro from 1973 to 79 at Irving Park Church.
Yeah, Irving Park, right.
And I went from there to North Wilkesboro. And that was my first church with an associate pastor. And my associate pastor had been I think a classmate of yours, but at least in school with you at Duke, Debbie Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe was how we got to know each other, was through her. And
she was a great friend.
And you were either still in your doctoral program or you had gone to Wesley Chapel. I can't remember. When did you go there?
81.
Okay, I was in North Wilkesboro till 82. So it was in those years somewhere along in there, And then I went from North Wilkesboro to be a DS in Winston.
We have a photo that hangs up at Lake Junaluska of my father-in-law's consecration as a bishop. So we're both in that photo as younger men.
Right.
Although I had more hair than you even then.
Even then, you did. Yes. I had a little more then, but not.
And then after you were here, you were elected a bishop, and you served down in South Carolina and then back here as well.
Right. Yeah. We had been. It's an interesting process. It was, in that first year there, your father-in-law was elected bishop, 88, the same year I went to Gastonia. And you and I presented him. That's why we got in that picture with him. We presented him for the consecration.
Correct.
And he gave us each a red stole as a gift for that consecration. And I used that stole for years. And then eventually gave all of my stoles to, except for the Episcopal stoles, gave them all to some younger preachers coming along. So, but we had those stoles on in that photograph outside the chapel. So then we were in Gastonia, and 3 years later, our delegation asked me to be a candidate for the episcopacy, and I agreed. Then I found out I was going to be moving to Myers Park, and that election would have been in 1992, and I came here and was just loved the place, loved being here, and you know, you never know if I would have been elected that year or not, but felt increasingly that I wanted to stay here, be sure, and the only way to be sure I stayed here was to withdraw from the Episcopal elections, and so I did. And I still remember the Sunday I announced it to the congregation, and their response indicated to me that I could stay, that it would be all right. So instead of staying here possibly 1 year, we ended up staying 5, and then it was 5 years later that I was elected bishop. We went to Columbia for 8 years.
Yeah, so you're being elected bishop, hence you have an oil portrait in the hallway. So I was giving a building tour yesterday. I said, hey, "What do you have to do to get your painting here?" And I said, "Well, you have to be elected bishop." And we told this story earlier today, but it's kind of funny. Somebody new to the church was walking with you and saw the portrait that Joyce Gossett painted. You told that story better than I did.
The way I heard you tell it the first time was that this person saw the portrait and said, "Who is that?" And you said, "Well, that's Lawrence McCleskey. He used to be a pastor here. He was elected a bishop." She looked at the portrait and said, "When did he die?" And you said something like the day he was elected a bishop.
It's too funny. Not dead yet. So you said when you came to Myers Park, you loved it. What did you love about it right off? I mean, what was here that...
It's interesting. I'd never really thought about being pastor here until Bev Jones called to talk to me about it. But I knew a little about the church. I knew the things that most everybody knows about churches like this. Oh, yeah, that's one of the big churches. That's one of the, all that kind of thing. But Margaret's parents had been members here for about 10 years. From 1966 to 76.
Really?
Yeah, her father, Margaret's father was a minister in Western North Carolina.
A great theologian,
practical
theologian.
Yeah, he was a wonderful, wonderful person, a mentor to me in so many ways.
Jim Fowler, for those
Jim Fowler was his name. He and her brother, Jim Fowler, taught, of course, at Emory. But Pop had served churches for a number of years in his early ministry, and then he was invited to come to Lake Junaluska as they called it the superintendent then, executive director now. Right. And he did that for 13 years, and when he left that job, he moved to Charlotte. They moved to Charlotte, Margaret's parents, and he was the first executive director of the College Coordinating Council. He worked with the Methodist colleges in Western North Carolina, development, that kind of thing. And they came to Myers Park during those years. So I knew some things about the church from them. I knew several of the former pastors and pastors in those years. Mitch Faulkner was one of the ones from those years. I had known Wilson Weldon. I had an interesting early experience here when I was actually a student pastor back in 1963. I came over here from New London, where my little church was, to assist Clay Madison in a wedding. The man in the wedding was a law student at Duke, and I was in the divinity school at Duke. We had gotten acquainted, and he was marrying someone from Myers Park Church. Can't remember her name. anyhow, I came and assisted Clay in that wedding. So I knew a little bit about the church. But when we first came, what did I love about it? Several things that sort of captured my imagination right off the bat. It was one of the most welcoming congregations we ever moved into. And that was just the nature of this place. You think a big church may be not warm, maybe cold, hard to get to know people. We found it to be an incredibly welcoming congregation. I knew it had a long history of outreach, both international and national, as well as local. I found that to be exciting. Margaret at the time had been working for about 9 years with UMAR, which you all still have some connections to. Yeah. And she had gotten to know some people in the church. She did development work for them. Your father-in-law had helped her secure a major gift for UMAR from a member at Myers Park when he was here, through his connections here. The first really major gift to UMAR, which enabled them to take a big step forward with the expansion and hire their first full-time director. Wow. So we had some connections like that. We knew it was a church that had a real heart for people who had needs of all kinds and sorts. And then I loved the worship. Right off the bat, the music.
Walter Ball was here.
Walter Ball.
Amazing.
Walter was here 36 years. He retired while we were here. He had a stroke and had to finally give it up. But Walter was the heart of this place. He played the organ for your wedding. Walter was the heart of this place in so many ways. And I had known your father-in-law. So all those things just kind of came together to make it just feel, in a way that no other appointment I think ever did, just feel right. I don't know. And I felt incredibly fortunate. I still love the worship. We watch you every Sunday. Thanks for the live streaming. And this leads me to one other thing I loved about it, the people. They didn't all agree on everything by a long shot. And we would have contentious discussions about various kinds of things. But this church stands out in my memory as a place where people could disagree without falling out. They maintain their respect, their friendship, their mutuality, their collegiality, their connections, and agreement was never a requirement for being a part of the life of this place. There was this common kind of commitment to be who we have been and are in our worship and our outreach and our educational emphases and all of that. Now, it took me a while. I didn't recognize all that the first day.
Oh, of course.
But those are the kinds of things that led me to love it.
That disagreement thing, we still try to hang on to that. It's harder than it was 30 years ago.
I'm sure it is.
Society is so polarized.
It's harder to be a minister
I still
now.
think
Yeah.
our people do that beautifully. We've tried to be the proverbial big tent church. I think we've pulled it off.
I think
we
you
have
James.
people on all sides of the spectrum. Yeah. We love each other. Anyway.
Yeah, you have, and I think that's part of the character of this place. I don't know where it came from originally, but it's sort of what church is supposed to be, it seems to me.
What are some, stories or accomplishments? You guys had a capital campaign while you were here, probably the least romantic one ever.
I think you're right about that. It was
no new building like this.
No new building. I mean, we had leaks in the rock walls on the outside of the sanctuary that were causing the plaster on the inside to bubble up. We had a heating system underneath that was rusting. We had leaks in the roof. There was just nothing exciting about it, but it was stuff that we had to do. And when Bernard was here, they had done a capital campaign. The first one, I think, since the last building had been built, which was a building before this one we're in now, on this the old youth building, which done when Wilson Weldon was here, I believe. Anyway, Bernard them had a campaign called Our Turn. The others before us had a campaign. Now it's our turn. Yeah. I think they raised about $1.5 million. This would have been back in the late 70s, early 80s.
That was a lot of money.
80s, 1980s. A lot of money in the 80s. So we decided we needed to do a campaign. But as you said, we had no building to build. And so how are we going to sell this thing? Well, we learned from our neighbors. Christ Episcopal and Myers Park Pres had both done campaigns just a few years earlier. I wish I'd thought of this myself, but I've got to give them credit for it. Each of them put a significant outreach component into that campaign. Mm-hmm. And so we put together a campaign with an outreach component. It was not easy to get to that, because some people said, no, that's not what a capital campaign's about. Yeah. We had a $4.5 million goal. We built the campaign around the scriptural idea of to whom much is given, much is required. We had a $4.5 million goal. We raised $5 million. 60% of it went to those kind of repairs I talked about, upfit some bathrooms, and buy some property. 40% we put to outreach. Wow. With that 40%, we built 5 habitat houses. Now, the church had a history, while Bernard was here, of having built a habitat house. And there was one member of the church who gave some seed money. Lucille Giles gave some seed money for that. Church raised the rest. We included 5 houses in the campaign that time. We did some health clinic stuff at the Bethlehem Center. We built the first athletic fields at Africa University in Zimbabwe. And several other smaller outreach components, but we had 40% of it we said we were going to give away. Wow. Well, the goal was $4.5 million. We raised $5 million. Wow. The property that we bought, there used to be on Queens Road where the Jubilee Hall building is now, 2 houses. A red brick house, which had been one of the parsonages of Myers Park, but had not been used for a parsonage for some years, and we used it for meetings and that kind of thing. So the church owned it. Then there was a large white brick house that we literally surrounded, but it was privately owned. The church member gave the money to buy the lot over there, just beyond the parking lot on Queens Road. We moved that house, and there came the land for Jubilee Hall, which was done later when Julian Aldridge was here with a huge campaign, and now what you all have done. The generosity of this church is incredible, and I don't know about earlier campaigns, but I know that each of the last 3 has had a significant outreach component in it. Yeah. And that became a talking point for me during the time I was bishop. I would say to churches who were considering capital campaigns, you will make this a better campaign if you put something in it for outreach. Absolutely. And you all have seen that.
I mean, our last campaign, when we started, no one had to suggest it. Just groundswell was, we're not doing this unless there's significant money for mission.
There you go.
We did $5 million for affordable housing.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't you have in this building now a place for the room at the end?
There's stuff within the building for mission. Yeah. The whole building's a mission, of course. But
the room at the end program was started while we were here. We had an associate minister named Bill Jeffries. Bill went from here to Providence. He's retired now. And Bill went with some other clergy in Charlotte to Nashville, Tennessee, where they had a similar program going on. They learned about that. They came back. They started it here in Charlotte, and churches would take a month at a time through the winter months to provide sleeping places and evening meals and breakfast for homeless. And now you've got a place to house them in this building.
At the basement here. Yeah, absolutely.
What do I love about this place? There you go. There's a little bit of it.
Any stories or moments, memories stand out from your time here?
Oh my!
Who were the clergy you worked with? Walter was here in music.
Walter was here in music. Yeah, Walter
Bill
was
Jeffries
here.
was
36
here.
years. Bill came. That's an interesting story. Bill was not here when I came. He had been my associate in Gastonia. And one of the associates left for another appointment. We had an opening, and I wanted Bill to come and really kind of serve as he did as a senior associate. And so I went to Bev Jones, and I said, we got this opening, and I want to get Bill. He said, I just got you from Gastonia. I can't go get him too. And it took me a long time to talk Bev into that, but he finally agreed, and Bill came. And while Bill was here, he was instrumental in starting Disciple Bible Study and starting Stephen Ministry. He went to St. Louis to get some training for the Stephen Ministry and room at the inn. So his tenure here was very significant. Ron Robinson was our minister with youth. Ron had a great ministry here. He transitioned after you came from youth into kind of missions and outreach, I believe was that.
He did
the
have
direction.
world missions.
And then he went to Wofford and has been on the faculty down there ever since. Ron Hall was here, and you told me earlier Ron's back now in the church. He left Charlotte for a while after he retired. Ron had an incredible singles ministry. He was our education minister and had a wonderful ministry with singles. Jill Allman was an associate for a period of time.
Another Florida person.
Another Florida person, and she ended up going back to Florida.
And is just remarried.
Has she really? Well, I'm glad to know that.
Just a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
I'm glad to know
yeah.
that. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Well, Jill, yeah, she, while we were here, that big Hurricane Andrew flew through Miami, and that was, Jill had grown up down there, and so we had some connections she helped us make there, and we had some building teams go down to work on stuff there. Melvin McIntosh, Melvin was just, and he and Anita are still in this church. I see them at annual conference.
He just turned 90.
Melvin just turned 90?
Yeah.
Well, Melvin had, your father-in-law had brought Melvin here as an associate. He did new member visitation, cultivation, pastoral care. Melvin probably conducted more funerals than any of us on the staff because he got to know people in his pastoral ministry in the last years of their lives. And Melvin had a very significant ministry. Melvin was also a pilot. Did you know about Melvin and his plane?
He's giving it up now, but he was a pilot.
It's time if he's 90.
Yeah.
But Melvin, he and several other fellows owned a plane together that they kept out at Charlotte Airport. And he would go out and fly regularly. And I had gone down to Epworth by the Sea for a meeting one time of they have this annual thing for pastors. I don't know if they still do it, pastors of large churches. So I'd gone down there for that. Well, Margaret was going to go with me, and she got called for jury duty. So she didn't get to go, at least not initially, but the jury duty went a couple of days. It was one of those one trial and you're done deals. So Melvin flew her down to Epworth by the Sea in his little plane, and she said I would fly in a little plane like that with only Melvin because she knew just how meticulous Melvin was about everything and everything just right. But Melvin was here and a great Gil Adams had just retired when we came. Gil was here
Long time.
20 years or more as the associate and the business manager. And Gil really ran the church. By the time I came, he had retired about a year before, and
his daughter Retha is very active still here.
Yeah, we knew Retha, and Virginia, his wife, they were here, and they used to say, I never saw this, but they used to say that Gil ran the church through Post-it notes stuck on the door frame of his office. Got to do this. You got a Post-it note, stick it up there, stick it up there. I never saw it, but that's a story.
Everybody's got their method, whatever works. You've seen the larger church from being a bishop and just knowing the church. And United Methodism is changing and all, but I tell our people, I think this is right, is that Myers Park has an important role to play in our denomination. I don't always know how to talk about that, but I think that's right. I think we matter for the larger church. Do you have any?
I think that's right. One of the things that we've seen in my ministry, I've been retired now almost 17 years, so a lot has changed. But over those years, it became apparent to me that there are some congregations that just demonstrate in their life church at its best. I grew up in one like that. I was fortunate with that. Hyde Park in Tampa, Florida, and you know that church and its pastors, Jim and McGray. Myers Park, in my judgment, is singular. Now, I'm a bit prejudiced because I got to spend some time here, but I use that phrase intentionally. I got to. When I watch you all on Sunday at worship, I sometimes will say to Margaret, we got to do that. You know, that I really did get to, what a gift to get to do that.
Absolutely.
It models the kinds of things I was talking about earlier. It models, for one thing, that the gospel is about grace and love and caring and compassion. A sermon you did recently that I have thought about immensely and at great length on empathy. And then you made the point just 3 weeks ago that empathy is a Christian value. It's not a political party value. It's a Christian value. This church has modeled that, I think, from its beginning. I think it does that now. I used to encounter people who would think of, Myers Park, that's that rich part of Charlotte. You know, that's where all the rich people live, and that church must be a reflection of them. I never felt like this church was a reflection of wealth for the sake of wealth. I always felt like it was a reflection of people who, if they had wealth, knew what to do with it. And of people who knew that whatever material gifts we are afforded in this life are ours to be stewards of. And this church models that. I think another way this church is a model for our denomination, and I encountered this frequently in my role as bishop after I left here. Some Methodist pastors are afflicted, and I use that word intentionally, afflicted with the idea that they and only they know what is best for the church they're serving at this particular time. And I used to say to pastors in appointment time, if they're going to a new appointment, don't go to that place as if nothing ever happened before you got there, because it's got a history. This church has modeled, in my judgment, in its pastoral leadership across the years, a history of persons who understand that they are not the owners of the place, they are the stewards of it for a period of time.
Absolutely.
And they're going to pass it on someday to somebody else. And they inherited it from somebody else. I was counting up yesterday, thinking about coming down here. I knew the founding pastor of this church.
That's amazing.
C. Excel Rozelle.
Tell about that. I think that's great. How you met him and what you knew about him. That's a great
When
thing.
I was a student pastor at a little place called New London over near Pfeiffer College, Albemarle, for a couple of years, Dr. Rozelle then retired. He taught at High Point University after his ministry. But he did a lot of teaching. We used to have these district training schools of one sort or another. You remember those back in the early days of our ministry. Dr. Rozelle was in that area teaching at one of those. Margaret's father had known him somewhere along the way. So Margaret and I just, I'm young, student pastor, don't know any better. We just invited him to our house for dinner one night. He came.
He came.
Yeah. And so I got to know him. And then later, when I was district superintendent in Winston-Salem, I knew Mrs. Rozelle. She was living there, and he had died. And Mrs. Rozelle and her daughter was at the time, who lived with her mother, they went to Ardmore United Methodist Church. And I was at Ardmore one evening for a charge conference. And the charge conference was in the CXL Rozelle Memorial Chapel. And so when it was over, we were standing in the hallway outside the chapel. And there's this round plaque up over the door. In memory of Dr. C.X.L. Rozelle. And then around the outside circle, it said, pastor, priest, prophet, professor. And I looked at that and I said, oh, Mrs. Rozelle, that is a lovely plaque in memory of your husband. To which she said, yes, he designed it himself. And then she said he loved alliteration.
Pastor, priest, prophet, professor. That's hilarious.
So there is the founding pastor of Myers Park Church. When the church was meeting in the auditorium at Queens College, 1925, and up till this building was built. Then I got to counting up the other pastors that I have known, and I'm sure I've missed some of them. And this is not the exact order, but Chess Herbert and his wife Libba was in the church when we were here.
Libba passed 100. I had her service.
You had
here
Libba's service.
Back.
Well, Wilson Weldon, Mitch Faulkner, Tom Stockton, Bernard Fitzgerald, me, Julian Aldridge, James Howell. I've known the persons who have served over half the years as in the senior minister's position in this church. I've known them personally. And none of them ever, in my judgment, thought of this place as theirs. I hear you say often publicly what a privilege it is to be your pastor. Well, that's the way I feel about my years here, and I think that's the way they felt, and they regarded it as a trust. And I think that's one of the ways this church can serve the larger church, is to model for United Methodism what pastoral ministry in an appointive system is about. It's about a trust that we have for a period of time, but somebody else is going to take it and do what they do with it, and that, all of which leads me to a thought. I don't know where it popped into my head, but I thought of it a couple of days ago. What is a church for? It's not for itself. It's for what it can give and what it can do for the world. Bob Dalton was a member here. Bob's father was one of the 10 founding members of Myers Park Church. Bob and Rufus were active here when I was here. Their brother Jim had moved to Atlanta.
Rufus
is still here. Before the sanctuary was built on the corner of Queens and Providence, there was a little grocery store there. Bob Dalton used to say, I've been coming to this corner for bread all my life. I don't know if you ever said that to you or not.
I heard that.
You've heard that.
Yes.
And you know, that's a model for our church. We're here for what we do for the world, for what we offer, for what we give for others, not for what we do for ourselves. And this building is a ministry. It's not just it's a great building, but it's not just a great big fancy church building. It's a ministry of
And
this church.
our people from the beginning, when we started on the building, almost no one said, "What's in that building for me? What's in that building for my kids?" People said, I didn't prompt them. They said, "This is for the city. This is for the world. This is for others." It's
I was
amazing.
pastor of a church one time where people would come to the board meetings and complain about the scouts and the young people leaving scuff marks on the floor. I never heard anything like that here.
No. Jesus doesn't care if there's scuff marks.
That's exactly right. You know, yeah.
I was going to ask you, what do you think of a church turning 100? You know, what do you think of that? But then we're trying not to get in a mood of just nostalgia. But how does that past call us into the future? I mean, what would you see as our call going forward?
Yeah.
Made 100 years, but.
Well, it's a hackneyed phrase in a way, but the past is prologue. It's great. It's a great history. It's a wonderful history, and to celebrate it is significant. But the thing, history for me, and I was a history major in undergraduate school, so I think history is important. I read a couple of days ago in an article in the New York Times about the death of David Souter, the Supreme Court Justice who just died.
Yeah.
He said, it was quoted in that article as saying, history is one of the things that keeps me from being cynical about the future.
Mm.
Because I look back and I see the good things that have happened. He didn't go on and say this is me interpreting what he said, but the first part he did, what keeps me from being cynical about the future. I look back at the good things that have happened. And if all we can do is say, boy, they sure were great, those were great days, what's the point? But if they impel us to continue, and that's what I would say. There's a line in Natalie Sleeth, I believe it was, who wrote the Hymn of Promise.
Yes.
In our end is our beginning. And if the beginning keeps showing up as that which motivates what's to come, and that's what 100 years can do for you. It can say not, look how great we were, but look at the challenges, look at the opportunities, look at the privileges, look at the wonderful kinds of things that are still out there ahead of us. And who knows, James, 100 years from now, what this place will be. But this to me is a church that says to our denomination, in a day when the church is waning in America, we all know that. But this church says to me, the future is not done yet, and somebody else will come along and build on what we've done.
There's such a thing as a deep-seated DNA of a church. That
There
is, second church I served out of school, Plaza. They'd fought like cats and dogs for decades, and they kept doing it.
Yeah.
It's just deep in their DNA. This church has some beautiful things that you've named that's deep in who we are.
Deep in the DNA, and you sense it here. I think back to people that I think of when I watch your live streaming worship. I mean, I feel like I'm a part of it. Every Sunday when the altar comes up, I think of Clara Barnes.
Mm.
Clara was probably gone by the time you came.
She was.
Clara gave in memory of her husband that wonderful dossal hanging behind the altar. Now, that's a beautiful piece of fabric. but it also is something that generations of people have seen and will see when they come to worship in this place. I think about people like Dick Thigpen. Dick always came to the first service. He sat on the back row. He lived into his 90s. He wrote a book about his life called 90 Years into the 20th Century. He was an attorney. He connected to the Duke Endowment. When we had our capital campaign, if you'd go to visit Dick in his home, he always dressed tie, formal. Bob Dalton and I went to see him about a gift to the capital campaign that we were doing. We got there, Dick came to the door. I was shocked. No coat, no tie, open collar, checked shirt.
Wow.
Blue and white. Dick, who always was the proper gentleman, green socks with white dollar signs on them. He took Bob and me into the den. We sat there. He said, well, I know why you fellas are coming. You want some money out of me. So he said, I figured you want a big check, so I wore a check shirt. And I figured you wanted a lot of money, so I wore these socks with a dollar sign on them.
You want to grow up to be like him, right?
You want to grow up to be like Dick Thigpen. But Dick, in his 90s, came to church every Sunday, and he was always concerned about what we were going to be doing for the young people. He was looking ahead, always, you know. And that's just, stories like that to me have huge symbolism.
Absolutely.
Because they tell you something about the people who built this place.
Yeah.
I can still see Bob and Rufus Dalton. We did a trip to the Holy Land. Bob and Rufus went. And we were in Jerusalem. And I guess, I don't remember exactly why I heard this, whether our hotel room balcony was right next to theirs or what, but I was aware of hearing Bob say one day, looking out the window over Jerusalem, look at that roof. Have you ever seen anything like that roof? It's like two young people, you know, then in their 70s, but so excited to still be learning and still be growing. So yeah, long rambling kind of response, but this church is important to this denomination. Another way that I think this church is important to this denomination, right now particularly, when I was here, we had, and I alluded to this earlier, we had people all over the theological spectrum, all over the political spectrum. We had people who participated in very, very conservative Bible studies, some non-denominational things. We had people who had theological educations and weren't sure if they believed in God, but they kept coming to church. We had people who were politicians all over the spectrum. We had the mayor of the city, we had the newspaper editor, we had business people, all over the spectrum. But that didn't define who they were. We had people, had this been an issue, and it was not the issue in the 90s that it has been in recent years, had the whole disaffiliation stuff been an issue, we had people who I'm sure would have been on both sides of the LGBTQ question. But I never heard anybody here talk about those disagreements as a reason for breaking the church apart. They just weren't going there. that's a model for the denomination right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have said during the people during the disaffiliation time, not many people asked. 3 or 4 people asked me, "Are we going to vote on this?" And I said, "I don't think so." And they said, "Good."
Good. Yeah.
Just-
Yeah. Yeah.
We're Myers Park Church.
We're Myers Park. I mean, I know I'm at a different place from Paul or Jane or whoever, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We've got other things that are more significant than that.
Absolutely.
And that is so important, not only for the church right now. This church is a model for the denomination, but for the country. I can't remember a more divided time in the U.S. In my lifetime. Now, I've read about some in the past, and then I'm kind of like David Souter, because we got through the Civil War, we got through the post-Civil War. We'll get through some of this stuff. But the country right now is so split up and separated, and people will write off relationships just in a heartbeat.
Family.
Family, yeah. But to have a place where that's not the way we deal with our differences is so important. And this
the
church
has got to
models that.
lead society out. Nobody else can do it.
Nobody else can do it. Nobody else can do it, and nobody does it better than this place. Am I prejudiced? Absolutely. But
Doesn't make it less true.
No, it doesn't make it less true.
No.
But Margaret and I remark virtually every Sunday, there's not another church like it, and I believe that. I just think it is unique. Now, there's a lot of Methodist churches I don't know much about, but the ones that I know about, and the one I grew up in is a wonderful church, has a lot of these very same kind of characteristics. But I don't know anybody, any congregation anywhere who does church better than Myers Park.
Special place, absolutely.
Yeah, which is why I wanted to come. When you mentioned this conversation, why I wanted to come.
We're so grateful that you've come and shared, and people watching this being blessed by it.
Well, it's
and you blessed this church yourself by your time here and your ongoing love for it. That's mattered over time.
It blessed me, and it's easy for me to get choked up about that.
God has done something remarkable in this place with these people. And the people here don't even know the people that were here 50 years ago.
No.
It's new people coming through, but there's a DNA in it. And man, it is a privilege to have the jobs that we have had.
It
here.
absolutely is.
We're the ones that get blessed by it.
It absolutely is. Everybody's memory of this church is just rich. It's just it's unusual. It's singular, and it is. It's. I sometimes say it's the hardest job I ever had. It was the most demanding. It's the only job I had a heart attack while I had it.
I haven't done that yet.
No, I don't. Yeah, but you're healthier than I. But it's the one I loved the most. Yeah.
Good. All right, Lawrence. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
I should call you Bishop McCleskey, but we've known each other too long.
I'm glad you didn't. One of the great things about retiring was I got my name back.
I remember right after you were elected, you came back and did something for us, and I'll never forget this. You said, since I got elected bishop, my jokes are funnier than they used to be.
That's right. Then the sermons are better. The jokes are funnier, Yeah, exactly.
Too funny.
Well, thanks for having me.